The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
We will prove to you that the defendant went into that room, raped as she slept, and continued to do so after she woke up and struggled to get him off of her.
Not a single time did they find a trace of Terence Crosbie's DNA.
I woke up to somebody on top of me, inside of me.
You walked through the lobby and out of the hotel, right?
Yes, trying to get out of that situation where I'd just been raped.
Okay. You didn't stop and say anything to the concierge?
No, I didn't know them.
Emotional testimony from the accuser in the rape trial of Irish firefighter Terence Crosbie. She testified to the alleged assault, but the defense is arguing there were no traces of the defendant's DNA. So what will the jury think? Plus, a tragic discovery in Georgia. A missing 6-month-old baby found dead, wrapped in a trash bag. The cause of death is now revealed, and now the parents are charged. Also this hour, we're examining Ellen Greenberg's mysterious death. We're comparing alternate autopsies with our own crime scene reconstruction expert. And the stepfather accused in the murder of 10-year-old Jaden Spicer asking for a lower bond. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I missed you over the weekend. And guess what? We planned a great show for you to kick off your week. Let's grab that cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. A camera is a save button for the mind's eye, said Roger Kingston. It is a powerful tool that we here at Court TV know all about. Former NFL player, now broadcaster and defendant, Mark Sanchez knows all about the power of the camera as well, as he's been filmed for many years as a college star at USC, in the NFL, where he played for about 10 years, mostly with the Jets, and presently as a broadcaster with Fox Sports. This guy needs to utilize his experiences with television and filming to inform his next move in his criminal case. Sanchez is being accused of being intoxicated and brutally assaulting a 69-year-old truck driver over a parking spot. The court docket indicating that the judge in the case will allow cameras to broadcast his December 11th trial. So Court TV is working to retrieve the court order on what the docket is showing. And you can bet if we're allowed in, we will be there. But Sanchez needs to think about not being there. What I mean is he needs to think about negotiating a plea. Yes, he has the right to a public trial. And yes, he is cloaked in the presumption of innocence. But along with those legal rights is the stark reality that he won't be seen as sympathetic and possibly will be seen as dangerous and menacing based on the facts that police have gathered about this awful incident. If I were him, I would have my lawyer beg the prosecutor's office for some mercy. The felony he's accused of carries a maximum of 6 years in prison. If I were him, I would have a very honest conversation with myself. I would proactively enter rehab now for any addiction or any anger management issues, because the facts don't seem to be on his side. And I think if Sanchez is smart, he will get out of the limelight, away from those cameras, and try to resolve this case as soon as possible. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
I was like, oh, white Subaru. I'm like, oh, vet plates. And I was like, Mom, that's the guy.
I did videotape him being put in cuffs, and there, you can slightly see them taking the children out of the car.
In New Hampshire, we've got our newest trial beginning this morning. We're calling it the Amber Alert murder trial for defendant Dustin Duran. He's accused of killing the mother of his 2 daughters and then taking the kids. After being captured, he claimed that the shooting was done in self-defense. Court's going to get underway at 9 a.m. Eastern time. In Florida, we've got jury selection beginning in the murder trial for defendant Alicia Andrews. She's accused of the ambush shooting of rapper Julio Fulio. Andrews is one of 5 suspects charged there. In Massachusetts, we've got the Irish firefighter rape case resuming at 9 a.m. Defendant Terence Crosbie is accused of raping a woman in a Boston hotel, and that is our top story this morning as the accuser returned to the stand Friday, where she gave very emotional testimony describing what allegedly happened that night, and then she faced a very tough cross.
I woke up to somebody on top of me, inside of me, in his penis in my vagina, on top of me, telling me, you like this, he couldn't give this to you, I'll give it to you, he's a loser. I was focusing on getting out. I was focusing on getting to safety.
So is it your testimony that you were sober at that point?
I was coherent.
I'm not asking if you were coherent. I'm asking if you believe you were sober.
I don't believe I was 100% sober. I got out of there as fast as I could.
Okay. You walked through the lobby and out of the hotel, right?
Yes, trying to get out of that situation where I'd just been raped.
Okay. You didn't stop and say anything to the concierge?
No, I didn't know them.
Didn't stop and call the police?
No, because I wanted to get to the hospital.
You walked home, though, right?
I did.
So does the accuser's story hold up on the cross? And what might the jury be thinking? Let's bring in our guests. Former prosecuting attorney in South Carolina. Currently, he's a part-time lawmaker and also in the private sector. Tommy Pope is with us. And in New York, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Mario Gallucci with us as well. Good morning to you both. All right, so let's start with the defense. Mario, I'm going to start with you, please. How did the defense do?
I thought they did very, very well. They're trying to show that she was probably not in the right state of mind at the time she reported this, that she had an opportunity when it immediately happened to tell somebody in the hotel that this occurred. She didn't. She had the opportunity to go to police. She didn't. Instead, she went home. But then she made the right moves afterwards. I mean, she got, from what I understand, she got undressed. She put her underwear, I guess, in a plastic bag, took it to the hospital, and submitted herself to a sane examination. So, the defense did great, but this is a retrial. The defense should be doing good because you already know what she's going to say. Being a defense attorney in a retrial is a very good thing to be because you already know what the answers are going to be. You've done this one time already, so you should be very well prepared. And I think they did a very good job of showing that she might have been intoxicated at the time and she didn't report it immediately.
Mario, that's a great point you made about with a retrial, how the defense gets an added benefit. Tommy, would you tell us about the state's perspective or the Commonwealth's perspective as it is here in Massachusetts? How tough is it for an alleged victim like this woman to come back in for a second round of cross?
I'll tell you. Excuse me, that what Mario said, the very reason they like it is the reason the prosecution doesn't. Now, going to the victim themselves, every victim's a little bit different, and they're kind of darned if they do, darned if they don't. This sounds like a strong victim. As Mario said, she was smart and did the right things. There's so many distinctions I'm sure we'll talk about. The fact that she admitted to being intoxicated, that she admitted to having sex with the other guy. There's a number of things that, to me, give her tremendous credibility, but it is tough to tell the same story twice when you're not on trial. If we were all friends in a conversation, if you've recorded it, you're going to tell it a little different the second time, not intentionally. It doesn't mean the truth changed, it's just in the telling of it. And so that's extremely difficult. You couple that with the nature of the crime and what she's going through. She is strong, and I do not envy her. The state is our job, but I do not envy her having to go through all of this again.
No, not at all. Great points, Tommy. I have a clip for you both. This is coming from Terence Crosbie's defense team talking with the jury about no trace DNA evidence. There's nothing to link the defendant to the rape as far as forensic evidence. Here we go.
Not a single time did they find a trace of identical I'm sorry, did they find a trace of Terence Crosbie's DNA? Not inside her, not outside her, not on her clothes, nowhere. The only identified male DNA found on came from the other person in that room that night, Liam O'Brien.
Mario, your thoughts on the fact that there isn't the DNA link here? And I'm not minimizing in any way, but what we have is testimonial evidence that would be arguably the strongest expert coming from this woman who is very bravely coming forward and saying what she alleges happened to her. Tell me, when you're on the defense side, what's it like where you have a case like this one where it's really the words and the memory that you're attacking, not so much the science?
So, I mean, I love DNA cases, but this is, you know, there is two male DNA present here. One is identified by the person that they had consensual sex with, and the other one is unidentifiable. So the defense is rightfully saying, you know, if there are two DNAs here and there's no proof that it's my client's DNA, then the only thing you can go by is this woman's testimony. This woman who just admitted that she was intoxicated, that she had been drinking, that she had a consensual relationship with this first individual that she had just met, that she then, instead of reporting it to the police or reporting it to any hotel staff, she immediately left and went home. So, you know, her testimony is going to go after her credibility. But like Tommy said, she was pretty strong on the stand. She admitted to things that she knew she had to admit, that she was, you know, probably still not sober at the time, and that she skipped telling anybody in a hotel. But, you know, what frame of mind are you in? I mean, her frame of mind was to get to a hospital. And I don't think that's something that's incredible. I think that goes right to her credibility. So I think the defense needs to be a little careful here.
Yeah, great points. Tommy, let me go back to you. This woman is an attorney. What weight do you think that carries with the jury?
I think it probably helps her in the way she presents herself. You know, going back to the DNA issue, I was thinking, because I knew there was some unidentified DNA, so I agree with Mario, the defense may be stepping too far. But I want to flip it over a little bit. We've talked about this on the show before. These stain examinations are incredibly intrusive. If she's having some kind of remorse that she met these guys and had sex with them, it's ironic to me she admits on the one and then, you know, clearly states that she was raped on the second one and subjects herself. This is what I'd be arguing as a prosecutor. Who puts themselves through it? And then you could even tell on, back to your question of an attorney, she knew what she was facing when she got into it, and she was still willing to take those steps, knowing the embarrassment, potential ridicule on cross-examination, and she handled that or took those steps knowing full well what she was facing. I think it bolsters her credibility. So, and if you go back to the DNA, it's kind of an absence. You know, the tough thing about DNA now, we expect it everywhere. Well, if it's undisputed the guys were sharing a room and they don't find his DNA in there, I mean, I think there's a good argument that, you know, sometimes you don't find DNA. So my short version is that I think it gives her credibility in a strange twist that she is risking her career, her reputation, because this really happened.
Yeah, great points, Tommy. And you know, you've worked cases. You've been an investigator. You served with SLED. You get it. Sometimes you don't have the DNA. If I were that prosecutor, if I would have questioned her, I would have made a bigger deal about her being a lawyer and said that with a lawyer comes a lot of responsibility, right? You're an officer of the court, you know, and have her explain a little bit of what does that mean, and does that mean you have to follow certain ethical rules, and okay, and it means you understand penalties of perjury. I would have kind of made a little bit of a bigger deal about it so that in the jurors' minds, perhaps her, you know, perhaps she's a little bit, more elevated in terms of credibility with them understanding what that means professionally. If you lie in court, it doesn't mean the same for lay witnesses. We'll leave it there for now, but this is going to be our live trial. We're going to be going into at 9 a.m. Eastern. Tommy Pope, you're going to be there with us to do more case analysis on this one when we go in together. Mario Gallucci, you're sticking around with us for the hour. Stand by, both of you, please. Here's what we'll do. We'll take our first break. Go get some more coffee, friends. When we come back after this, we're going to turn to a big case making headlines in Georgia.
During that search, the body of an infant was discovered in the backyard of a home on Green Valley Road. The infant was later positively identified as 6-month-old Nakai Pratt.
Can you guys talk about how he was found? Was he, in something, when your officers discovered him?
He was found discarded in a trash bag.
Oh, how dreadful. Look at this beautiful baby. This is Nakai Pratt, 6 months old, found dead in the woods. Now his parents are facing charges. Plus, what really happened to Ellen Greenberg? We're digging deeper into the alternate opinions from some of the world's most renowned experts.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Welcome back. Found wrapped in a trash bag in a wooded area near an apartment complex in Metro Atlanta. After a 3-day search, the death of 6-month-old Nakai Pratt is a trending topic this morning, as his cause of death has now been revealed. On Friday, in Clayton County, police said that little baby Nakai died from blunt force trauma from an apparent head injury. Nakai's parents are now both in custody in connection to his death. Here's a look at some of the case facts. His dad was initially saying that the baby was snatched by robbers. A stash house was reportedly the scene of the alleged kidnapping, according to Dad. Well, detectives took a look at the inconsistent statements Dad was making. The physical evidence pointed right to him. And little Nakai was a twin, and his sister thankfully was unharmed, and she is in the custody of the state of Georgia this morning. Nakai's father and mother, Antonio Pierce and Nicolette Pratt, were both denied bail on Friday. Pierce is facing a murder charge. Both parents due in court next month. So we're asking, what might we learn at their preliminary hearings? Let's bring in defense investigator in the state of Georgia, Charles Middlestat. So great to have you here in the studio with us. Always an honor. And joining us remotely, you need to know Tommy Pope, retired SLED agent. He's a lawmaker and an attorney in South Carolina, famously put away Susan Smith. So let's talk a bit, Charles, about some of these facts pointing to Dad. It was giving many of us here at Court TV a little bit of an awful deja vu as we had been covering that case of little baby Emmanuel Haro, and Mom was saying, oh, somebody accosted me in a parking lot, snatched the baby right in the middle of a diaper change, and then here this guy, different set of facts, but claimed that somebody wanted to kidnap the baby. And we started wondering, is this a story that criminals often put forth, or is this just, we happen to see it in the news recently and now here it is again? What do you say?
I think it's probably exactly the latter, where it's just coincidental that that's sort of a similar pattern, similar story, but obviously a terribly tragic case. And the inconsistent statements that Mr. Pierce made initially are what put him on law enforcement's immediate radar, just because they weren't lining up.
Right. And if you've done a murder, and I don't know if he did or not, he's innocent unless and until he's proven guilty, but if you've done a murder and you decide to talk to investigators and lie, Charles, how much worse does that make things for you?
Oh, it's the worst thing. In the defense world, one of the first things we want to know is whether their client or defendant has made a statement, because even in the case of actual innocence, a statement is going to be problematic. And because if you just misstate a single thing, it's going to cast suspicion upon you, and it's going to be something that isn't going to line up, and it's going to cause law enforcement to possibly go off in the wrong direction. And now you're having to undo just a misspoken word, or a time that you didn't remember correctly or a location that you didn't remember correctly. So statements are massive.
Right. You're so right, Charles. Tommy Pope, always a great thing for prosecutors when you have a defendant who is telling tales and then you eventually get enough evidence to make an arrest. How do you view some of these inconsistent statements coming back to haunt Mr. Pierce?
Well, you know, you and I have talked about this numerous times. You're always, law enforcement's doing the dual investigation. You know, they're taking at face value whatever they're being told, you know, of a kidnapping, and they're working it, but they're also looking at the family because, as we all know, rarely, unless it's some kind of relation, are we seeing children taken in these kind of incidents. And so the fact that he's making a statement and you know, like Charles said, time and time again, that's ultimately what locks them down. But the difficulty is, and in these type cases, if the family, if the parents decide not to be cooperative, then, you know, we hear the jury instruction that you can't use silence against them. But what family would not work to do everything possible and cooperate to get their child back? So that's what I think really makes these cases unique, in that the defendant or potential defendant is kind of darned if they do, darned if they don't, because they need to be cooperating if what they're saying is true to help locate this child.
Yeah, so true, Tommy. Let's turn to what happened last week. Investigators holding a press conference to update the public as people have been wondering, where is baby Nakai? It's been making news all over Atlanta. And here are some of the details shared at that presser about statements that Mr. Pierce made.
When officers arrived, they spoke with Antonio Pierce, who reported that he had been robbed at gunpoint and that as suspects fled, they took his 6-month-old child, Nakai Pratt, from his car seat and left in an unknown direction. As detectives began investigating, inconsistencies with Mr. Pierce's account quickly emerged. Based on evidence gathered, investigators determined that foul play was involved and identified Antonio Pierce as a suspect in the disappearance of his son.
What was it about his initial narrative of what happened to the baby that made you guys suspicious?
He had inconsistent statements. He was caught in a lot of lies throughout his interview process.
Okay, pants on fire, Mr. Pierce, apparently, according to prosecutors and police there. Charles, some more details for you. Apparently, he told police that little baby Nakai was taken by 2 armed men who also stole $6,500 in cash and 3 pounds of marijuana. Did he just implicate himself as being a drug dealer? Do you think?
We certainly did. Now, I suspect that is not, you know, that ultimately that's not what law enforcement was focused on. I think the inconsistent statements were probably compared vis-a-vis the phone records, particularly the CSLI, the cell site location information, is what they seized upon to determine that those statements were inconsistent, because they got these tower hits and maybe some actual GPS hits that would have put him at different locations than what he claimed, and maybe the timing of his statements. There's a lot of information there that would have been very, very useful to law enforcement to try to dissect the various statements and determine that they were inconsistent. And then I'm sure there's also some testimonial evidence peppered in there. They probably did some interviews and realized that some of what he was sharing was also not lining up. And so between just those 2 sources, they came to a pretty quick conclusion.
Excellent analysis, Charles. Tommy Pope, I want to turn to you, please, and talk a little bit about Nakai's mom. So baby Nakai's mom, Nicolette, is not charged with his murder. She's charged with child cruelty, concealing a death, and obstructing justice. So what do you do with mom? If you're in the prosecutor's office, do you try to flip mom? Do you join her, prosecute her as well? I'd love you to weigh in on this, Tommy.
Sure. I think first you start with the case in chief and what evidence you have and how far you can go to proving it without any assistance. You know, you always want to try the case without help, you know, from potential co-conspirators or whatever, contributors, co-defendants, whatever you want to call them. And so I think that would, to me, would be a last resort. You know, if I look at the 40,000-foot view on this one, I feel like what happened, because you got twins and you didn't kill them both, so I feel like there was, you know, some kind of physical abuse situation, and, you know, he got mad, and, you know, the child was crying. We've seen this, unfortunately, time and time again, and then overreacted, killed the child, and then had to dispose of the body is what it feels like. And so how complicit mom was would really take me to what I'm going to do regarding her and any offers.
Right. You know, Tommy, you got me thinking when you mentioned the other baby, the little twin to Nakai. Thank God she's okay, right? We're all so glad she's all right. She's in the custody of the state. But could it go toward a defense? Charles, of course, I've got to ask you that. You do defense work. You're a defense investigator. The attorneys call you to dig in and help them out. So look at things from that lens, if you would, please. Do you think that could be a route of a defense to explore here?
Sure. I think you could probably use that to try to mitigate what might have occurred if there was ultimately some sort of accidental death that occurred, and this is more of a concealment issue in terms of, hey, look, the child's sibling is, you know, in good health, and according to you know, other witnesses and other accounts and just the history, medical history, etc., there's never been issues of abuse, and so that would be perhaps a way to mitigate what might have occurred. And of course, the nature of what I understand to be evidence of blunt force trauma, the nature of those injuries are going to be very, very important as to what occurred, independent of, you know, mom. Now, if mom cooperates or flips and says, yeah, I witnessed the whole thing, and this is how the death occurred, then that's now we're dealing with a horse of a different color. But if she doesn't cooperate, then there's certainly an opportunity to mitigate things in that regard.
You may get a call on this one, as this is an Atlanta case. If he's smart, he will call you. Charles Middlestat, thank you so much for coming in the studio on this one. We'll keep following it as we want justice for that precious baby, Nakai Pratt. Tommy Pope, good to see you in just a little while on Court TV Live. Thanks for everything. We'll hit a break. Friends at home, go get some more coffee. When we come back, many questions still remaining in the mysterious death of Ellen Greenberg. We're spotlighting the different autopsy reports and opinions, shining a spotlight on two of them from the world's most renowned experts. We'll be right back.
Because of that, I would like to assure the public that now, thanks to these guys, Jaden is now in good hands.
Plus, the stepfather accused in the murder of 10-year-old Jaden Spicer wants a lower bond. Could this tip the scales of justice? That's next.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
They said something about suicide, which I never considered for 1 second. Never, ever, ever would she do that.
It's like somebody punches you hard in the stomach, and again, and the air goes out of your lungs, and you can't breathe.
This morning, we're spotlighting the mysterious death of Ellen Greenberg, breaking down what two renowned forensic experts had to say about how she died. Greenberg was found dead in her apartment in 2011 with some 20 stab wounds, some of them to the back of her neck. Now, two Philadelphia medical examiners came to conclusions about the manner of death, ruling it a suicide. The current Emmy, again, ruling it a suicide. Now, this morning, we're going to be examining some different expert opinions, people that were consulted by the Greenberg family and weighed in. Now, there were several of them. Several people put forth consulting opinion reports, and the new Emmys report notes all of them. This morning, we're going to focus on the two from the world's most renowned experts. Forensic pathologist, the late, great Dr. Cyril Wecht, weighed in. And so did Dr. Henry Lee, the PhD, who's well known all over for his expertise in the area of blood spatter and crime scenes. So let's start with what Dr. Cyril Wecht says. He writes that suicidal stab wounds can rarely be multiple, and the location of the stab wounds are also unlikely to be self-inflicted. Dr. Lee's report states that the number and type of wounds and blood-stained patterns observed are consistent with a homicide scene. Dr. Wecht says this is strongly suspicious of a homicide, and he goes into more details as to why. What we wanted to do this morning is bring in our own expert who can take a look at what these two doctors have said and what the current ME is saying, and then give us his opinion. You know him and you love him from the Alec Murdaugh trial, crime scene reconstruction expert, Dr. Kenny Kinsey. Good morning, Dr. Kinsey. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Miss Julie.
I want to start by looking at Dr. Wecht's report, and then we're going to move on to Dr. Lee's report. So something that I thought was really noteworthy in Dr. Wecht's report was where he talks about the angles of the stab wounds. So extracting from this letter he wrote, giving his opinion, we can see there were various stab wounds to Ellen Greenberg's body, 20 wounds, some to her chest, many to the back of her neck. He details that in this report. There it is up on your screen. And he notes them by letters to note what exactly we're looking at. I think we're having a little trouble with the graphic. But in his report, he goes on to talk about the ones, especially at the back of her neck and head, how they're going at different angles, different directions. So look at this. The multiple stab wounds to the back of the upper neck and lower head found at autopsy were unlikely suicidal stab wounds, especially the directions that K, L, Q, R, and S, with vertical direction left to right, straight vertical M, N, and T, and right to left horizontal O and P vertical. And so as I'm looking at this, Dr. Kinsey, I'm wondering, okay, so he's saying this pattern of wounds seems unusual. What do you say, please?
Miss Julie, if you look at Dr. Lee's report specifically, and I believe it's mentioned in several of the other reports, the lack of evidence that this was a frenzied or fast-moving attack. I've seen multiple directions of stab wounds and instruments that produce these type of wounds. But generally speaking, you're going to have evidence that your victim is moving around a lot. And we don't have that here. And additionally, a lot of these wounds, according to the documentation, are not very severe. So I found Dr. Lee's report very informational, but there's some things that is lacking that I would expect from the scenes I have seen. I agree that the multi-directional stab wounds are uncommon, and biomechanically speaking, I believe you have to look at the common sense aspect of it.
Right, the common sense aspect, exactly. Dr. Kinsey, along those lines, Dr. Wecht noted in his report that a suicide victim will rarely stab themselves through clothing. Generally, this would be done by someone exposing their skin and making the act easier. What do you think about that?
Well, not so much maybe my education, but my training and experience, I would have to agree with that statement. And 25 years of working death scenes, both as a law enforcement officer and a consultant, rarely, if ever, except spur of the moment, or like I said, with a frenzied decision or spontaneous decision to commit self-harm, I don't believe I've ever seen this. And it's perplexing, and the multiple locations is what throws me.
Right, right. You know, and also, we know that there were marks on her neck. Dr. Michelle Dupree came on this program not too long ago and said it could be indicative of strangulation. We know there were bruises all over Ellen Greenberg's body in various stages of healing. So many things in this report are just head scratchers. Tell me, Dr. Kinsey, as we look Dr. Henry Lee's report, I want to draw your attention to point number 1, where he talks about how there was no evidence of a break-in if you examine the deadbolt lock, saying there does not appear to be damage to the door jamb or evidence of break-in at the deadbolt lock from the other side of the door. You know, and I saw this, and right away, you know, I thought, oh, this goes against the fiance's statements that he made, that he had to force the door open because he claims that it was latched, that the metal bar was swung over, claims by Ellen Greenberg from the inside, but yet everything was pretty much intact, loosened, albeit loosened, but still intact. I'm sure you've breached a lot of doors in your career, Dr. Kinsey. What do you think about this?
Yes, ma'am, that's consistent with many hotel room doors, and many times we've had to force entry. Either someone was harmed in the room or they committed self-harm and they would lock themselves in. There's certainly more times than not going to be some damage, because you're not going to take your time jimmying that lock with a device, or it's actually pretty easy to do it with a string. But yeah, I find that odd, and it's certainly inconsistent with what is reported.
Let's look at point number 3 that Dr. Lee makes. He said that the blood on Ellen Greenberg's face was flowing in different directions, and that this could have indicated that she moved after the head injuries. Dr. Kinsey, your thoughts on this point, please.
Yeah, Miss Julie, this is strong. We see this a lot, and certainly in the case where a victim has been moved or a decedent has been moved or moved themselves under their own power. And this is physics. It works off gravity. And Dr. Lee, I'm sure, has seen this thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And I have no problem with that portion of the opinion at all.
Right. So, Dr. Kinsey, you've read all the reports. You've read the recent report. I've got in my hand this 32-pager by the county ME. You've looked at Dr. Weck's, Dr. Lee's, reviewed the evidence. What's your assessment of what happened to Ellen Greenberg?
Ms. Julie, it is very difficult to form it with what we have seen, because I haven't actually seen photos from autopsy photos from the crime scene. But what I would say is that here you've got multiple theories, and those are beliefs by multiple individuals. Some have seen more evidence than others. And the problem is the inconsistency with the amount of evidence that is analyzed in a case like this. You certainly, if you're in it for the same motivation, and if you have the same intent, the only way to form a consistent opinion, if it's possible at all at this point, is to get a number of experts from the medical community and the investigative community together in person, not swapping reports, not swapping emails, not throwing out conflicting opinions. And you're going to have to do more than just a tabletop or more than just reading a report to come up with an opinion, because, like I said, opinions are just that. They are beliefs. Some are based more on the actual physical evidence, but there could be things such as bias, more information gathered from an investigator. Is that information correct, or was it misinterpreted? And so the only way to do it is you've got to forget the adversarial part and get a number of these experts together and see if you can hammer this out. And unfortunately, that's the only way this family is ever going to get answers, because these are heavy hitters, and they're heavy hitters on every side. And you can't discount what they're saying, but then when they're conflicting, there can only be one truth, because a gray area here doesn't help.
Yeah, boy, excellent points. I hope that happens. I hope exactly what you're saying happens, Dr. Kenny Kinsey, and I sure hope you were part of it. You were in the private sector now with Dr. Kenny Kinsey and Associates. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on with us. See you soon, my friend. Give my love to your beautiful family. When we come back, we're going to turn our attention to the case of Jaden Spicer. Could the stepdad get his bond lowered? That's next.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Troopers say Jaden was allegedly last seen on Tuesday, August 5th around 9 p.m. wearing blue Sonic the Hedgehog PJs.
And she talked to 911 and she said to them that my child is missing.
The remains of Jaden Spicer were discovered buried at the scene. Jaden's mother, Felicia Gross, 33, of Jackson, was taken into custody and transported to Kentucky River Regional Jail.
Jaden is now in good hands, and we're going to take care of him.
You may remember little Jaden Spicer, the 10-year-old, reported missing in Kentucky. The search was on until his body was found a week later, buried underground in a plastic tote. His mom, Felicia Gross, is accused of murdering him, while his stepfather, Joshua Gross, is facing charges including complicity to commit murder and abuse of a corpse. Court documents now show he wants his bond lowered. His attorney argues that his $1 million cash bond is an amount that he could never hope to post. So what should the judge do? Lower the bond? Let's bring in high-profile criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci. All right, Mario, I know you're going to say lower that bond. Tell me why, please.
So bail is not punishment. Bail is to ensure that you go to court. And in Kentucky and just about every other state, the only thing the judge is required to look at is whether you're a flight risk or whether you're a danger to public. So in this case, they're arguing that he is not a flight risk. As a matter of fact, while he was under investigation, he did not flee. He knew the investigation was ongoing, and that's one of the issues that his attorney is going to bring out, that knowing he was under investigation for this homicide of this poor child, he didn't leave. He didn't flee the jurisdiction. He's got no prior contacts with the criminal justice system. He is well known in the community and has many ties to the community. So his lawyer's going to argue, why are you setting $1 million bond? If he's a flight risk, he would have left. And if he's a danger to society, well, where's his he's got a lack of criminal record here. So both those arguments would make for probably a reduction of bail. You got to remember, too, he's not charged with the murder. He's charged with helping. So, it's not the same charge. And I think bail should be lowered in this case. It should be an amount that he can make.
All good points. Mario, give us an idea of what may be a reasonable argument for bail for him on this one. Like
so there are no bail. Okay, there are no bail bondsmen in the state of Kentucky, so it would be a monetary amount. So I would try to look at my client's means and set it at an amount. $100,000 is more than enough to ensure somebody coming back to court. I mean, $100,000 to this person is probably a substantial amount of money, and that'll ensure that he's taking it seriously. He's not going to flee the jurisdiction. You also have the possibility in Kentucky to put him on house arrest, put him on an ankle monitor, have him on a GPS. So I would suggest that too. Maybe no bail and put him on a GPS monitoring system where he has to report. He could only go to church, work, and home. So that's what I would be aiming for.
That's a really good suggestion. Non-monetary bond. Boy, I can't talk today. Non-monetary bond. Put him on a monitor. Watch him. If he doesn't abide by the bail conditions, he gets revoked. And Mario, you always come so prepared. I had no idea. No bail bondsman in Kentucky. Who knew? You did your research. Yeah, that's something. I'd be interested to see how cases work out for that reason when you don't have them. We could do a whole segment on that sometime, but you've got cases to win. Mario Gallucci, thank you so much for coming on Opening Statements this morning. We'll see you soon. And friends at home, thank you for being with us. You can watch or share this episode again. Please do tell your friends about it. We're here for you every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time to get you all pumped up and ready to go for the big court day ahead. When we come back, the court day begins in Massachusetts. We've got key testimony in the Irish firefighter rape trial for defendant Terence Crosbie. Be right back. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.